The next step, and this is really important, is knowing when to break your dry fast. A lot of people and a lot of patients that I work with doing dry fasting or any kind of fasting will sometimes push it too much. And you need to know the signs of when you should break a dry fast. Hey, what's everybody? Dr. LeGrand here for another fasting video. If you are new here and not subscribed to our channel, we post every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every week, and we talk about fasting videos, other different types of health tips, as well as natural medicine, other topics that might interest you. So if you have not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any other future videos. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to plan to do dry fasting. Now, for you expert dry fasters out there, this might be more beginners, but there is a few tips I'm going to leave towards the end of the video about some things that maybe you have not thought about implementing when it comes to dry fasting. So first and foremost, when it comes to planning for a dry fast, if you really want to consider it, understand that this is not for everybody. Not everybody can do dry fasting or should feel the need that they have to. There is definitely so many other fasting techniques out there. Granted, dry fasting does have an extra level of benefits that can implement, but you could still get a lot of the same benefits from other different fasting techniques. So now that I have that out of the way, the other thing that you should really consider if you have not done dry fasting before, but if you are somebody that's done dry fasting a lot in the past, whether it's for religious or for health reasons, you should always do an annual physical exam. Usually most of your doctors are going to do standard blood work. They'll do a comprehensive metabolic panel. They might do a CBC to look at your blood, your white and red blood cells. And it's good to kind of look at if everything's healthy, everything's in balance. You're not electrolyte insufficient. You're not having, issues of becoming pre-diabetic, as well as maybe having some cardiovascular markers. If you're out of the clear, everything looks good, then yeah, maybe, going and doing dry fasting shouldn't be an issue. So having that out of the clear is something you should always look at before you even start dry fasting. Then the next thing you should really consider is trying to pick a fasting period. So if you are very new at this, I would recommend doing intermittent dry fasting first. So just like how you do intermittent fasting where you eat, you fast in a 16 hours and then you eat in an 8-hour window frame. So you would do that with dry fasting at first, then build up to 20 hours and then 24 hours. So you first start doing that in that period, but also picking times when, you can be very consistent with your dry fasting versus like, oh, I'm just going to do dry fasting today. Have it more planned out. The next thing that you should really consider is trying to hold off on doing exercise during dry fasting. Some people can do it, but for a good majority of people, because when you exercise, you're needing a lot of electrolytes and to keep yourself hydrated, it's hard to try to do exercise along with dry fasting, so just plan on holding off of it when you're doing dry fasting. The next tip is getting a lot of sleep when you're doing dry fasting. You'll find that, when you're doing intermittent fasting, it's not much of a big issue, but when you start doing dry fasting, your body can start getting really fatigued. Not for everybody, but at least initially, that very first day when you're doing dry fasting. So get enough sleep. But the other suggestion that I do recommend is try to plan your fast where when you are sleeping for 8 hours, make sure that's during your dry fast. It makes it a little easier when you have an empty stomach that you don't have to even think about it. You're sleeping a good 8 hours of your fast. So example for that would be maybe you start your dry fast the middle of the day. And then that last 8 hours, you're, at least a good portion of it, 8 hours, or you start at breakfast. That's another, I always like recommending at breakfast time because you start breakfast and then the last 8 hours of your dry fast, you're sleeping it. And so when you wake up, you're breaking your fast, you're ready to go for the next day. Another thing that you have to consider, and a lot of people don't consider this into the account when it comes to dry fasting, is the weather. Now we're running into the fall, winter months, which, isn't going to be a problem. But if you are watching this video during the summertime, you should consider the weather, maybe even look at the weather. If it's going to be really hot that week, maybe not consider doing dry fasting, especially if you do stuff outside. Now, if you do things inside and you're not going to be outside that much, it probably is not a big concern. But if you're going to be outside and you work a lot, it's probably not a good option because you're going to tend to sweat more, you're going to get yourself more dehydrated, and you're going to find yourself not able to go through the dry fast as you would want to. The next step, and this is really important, is knowing when to break your dry fast. A lot of people and a lot of patients that I work with doing dry fasting or any kind of fasting will sometimes push it too much. And you need to know the signs of when you should break a dry fast. So things that I always tell people when you are looking for signs especially with dry fasting, is the big one is if you start feeling kidney pain. Now, how do you know if you're feeling kidney pain? Usually it's going to be on your back. So when you're feeling like lower back pain, mid back pain, that could indicate that your kidneys are starting to be stressed out too much, because when you are not consuming any water or foods, especially foods that have water, your kidneys are going to be under a lot of stress, and they're going to have to retain a lot. The body's going to have to retain a lot of water, and so that can cause, it does happen, where people can get urinary tract infections from dry fasting. So be very in tune with your body. That is a big sign. The other thing is, extreme exhaustion or extreme dehydration, where your mouth is super dry. It's hard for you to talk. That's when you should probably consider, okay, now I need to take a little bit of water, take some, things, foods that have more liquid in them, things like that. So you just need to be very cautious about those things. The other things, of course, severe headache, or a very severe abdominal pain can be an issue during dry fasting. Or another big one is that you start feeling heart palpitations. Your heart is really beating really fast or irregular. You definitely need to be breaking your dry fast if that is the case. The next step, in fact, this should have been probably the first step, but before you even start your dry fast at all, is you should prepare your food. So go to the grocery store, buy the foods that you need, so that you're not having to, when you come to break the fast, you realize you don't have any good foods, and then you end up breaking your dry fast improperly. So make sure you prep beforehand, okay? So then that leads into how to break your dry fast. So the big thing, of course, you're going to start with taking a little bit of liquid. I would say just start out small. You don't want to go too extreme. You don't want to guzzle a gallon of water because you're so thirsty. Just take it very small by doing 5-10 ounces of water, and then waiting a little bit long for an hour, and you could start doing maybe a soup, a veggie soup, so something that has very dense minerals. You can even do some bone broth that have dense good proteins, but that are still more liquid based. So foods that are more wet. Even you could even do things that lots of vegetables with healthy fats. And then when you're kind of moving more towards the end of the day, you could start implementing more solid foods. But always keep it more wet at the beginning that are high, more mineral-based proteins. You definitely want to kind of avoid a lot of your processed foods. You definitely want to avoid processed foods, as well as avoiding things that are high in sugar. It's never a good option because your body's very vulnerable, especially your cells, when you are consuming food for the first time. Now, because with sugar, your cells, especially a combo of sugar and fats, they're going to absorb a lot of that. And you don't want to be hitting these yo-yo effects where you're spiking in high sugar levels as well, absorbing a lot of fat, especially if you're trying to use dry fasting for losing weight. Now, some final tips that I suggest with dry fasting is that you really have to understand what you're using it for. I feel like a lot of people try to use dry fasting for just losing weight at a faster pace. But the one tip I can give a lot of people who have been doing dry fasting for a long time, and I get that you've had great results, is sometimes smaller is better. The best analogy I can kind of give, and I've been thinking about this for the past couple weeks now, is the story about the tortoise and the hare, right? Usually with the hare, right, he goes really fast trying to win the race, but he takes breaks. And whereas the tortoise, it's slow and steady, wins the race. So the same is with our health and with fasting. By implementing more smaller increments at a slower pace versus doing an extensive, extreme 4+ day dry fast, trying to get the quickest results as possible, and then you're just jumping back to your old bad habits. I'd say that, you're not going to win the race in life. Win the race, at least in life, for your health. You got to understand that it's got to be small increments to be able to benefit things for your health in the long run. Because if you start making that a lifestyle change, you're going to be able to benefit for longevity as well as anti-aging, versus doing something one time or a couple times or going from extreme up and down. It's not going to be that great for your health. So if I can encourage you to try to implement dry fasting at not such an extreme, but implementing it as more of an intermittent dry fasting technique and doing like alternate day fasting, stuff like that can really benefit in the long run and make it an easier lifestyle change versus doing these prolonged fasts. I always encourage prolonged fasts, but trying to understand that you want to also do the intermittent stuff because that can really benefit your body in the long run. And prolonged fasts are more like quarterly basis things or maybe a couple times out of the year. So I hope this brought you guys value. If you guys have any further questions about dry fasting, how to start dry fasting, I'm curious how you guys start your dry fasting, how you prep for it. Go ahead and leave that in the comments section below. I know everybody in the community will appreciate it. And then, of course, if you are new here and not subscribed to our channel yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button over there, right here. And then check out our other dry fasting videos over here. And as always, give us a big thumbs up, share with your family and friends. And until next time, this is Dr. LeGrand signing out, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.